All right, welcome. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering, big picture, why even sell online courses? Why are we spending so much time investing in learning about how to make a profitable online course when I could be doing a different business model, whether it's drop shipping or, an agency or affiliate marketing, why specifically online courses? And we're going to go through this. I'm going to explain why I've devoted myself to just focusing on this particular business model and no other business model because I think it stands out for so many different reasons. So I'll go through the pros and cons of the business model first of all, so that you understand why we're doing what we're doing, and it'll give you some aspirations of, that you're on the right track and you're working towards a business that is the correct business model to pursue. All right, so let's start off with the benefits of an online course. Okay, so number one, profitability, right? So an online course is an incredibly high profit business model. Now, if I look at some of my other online courses, the only cost that they incur is Google Ads, which is about 10 to 15% of your kind of total revenue, probably close to 10%. The only other costs are fixed costs, and they're very, very, very low fixed costs. So it's your kind of annual hosting per year, which could be $200-300, and it could be your actual domain name registration, which is could be $10 a year, barely anything, right? I guess you could also argue that there are some merchant fees included. So when you actually take payment out of Stripe or PayPal, they might take a 1 to 2% cut out of that revenue. But typically I don't include that in. I only factor in the net revenue into my kind of P&L. So when I look at kind of my existing online courses, when I look at their profit margin, which basically means what percentage is my profit of my total revenue. So every dollar in my pocket, so every dollar of additional revenue that I make, what percentage of that goes into my pocket as profit after paying all costs? And that's typically around that 80 to 90% mark for all of my online courses. And you're going to be in the same position once you go through this course and build your own. Now, why is this so incredibly important? It's because you might see people on TikTok or YouTube telling you to go start a dropshipping store, for example. And they'll show you pictures of how they made, X amount of money from dropshipping, whether it's 10K a month or whether it's 100K a month. At the end of the day, they're selling a course and teaching people how to dropship. This is complete rubbish because it doesn't matter what your revenue is. What it does matter is what your profit is, because at the end of the day, that's what's coming home. And what they don't tell you about these dropshipping courses is that they're actually paying, their profit margin on these dropshipping businesses is only like 10%, right? So you might see them making $100,000 a year in revenue on the dropshipping business, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. Let me learn from you. But at the end of the day, they're only making 10K a year in profit and going through so much effort to actually, build up the website, make all these sales. They're probably paying, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in, Google ad spend or Facebook ad spend. They've got to hold stock or pay for stock, probably go through tax, and, it's just not worth it, right? Not worth it for 10 grand, right? So at the end of the day, profit's what matters. In an online course, all that money is coming to you via profit. So the perfect business model from that perspective. Number two, it's a very low involvement and passive income business. So what I mean by that is, after you've built all the content, after you've built out the website and the course, etc. And granted, that does take a lot of time to do that initially. But after you've built that website up to completion, it doesn't actually require any time investment. You don't necessarily need to update your content. You might have a little bit of time spent on customer service, but that's really up to you how much time you want to dedicate to that process. But if you don't want to dedicate much time to that process, you can limit it or outsource that. And at the end of the day, after that point, you're not going to spend any time on the business, and all you do is wait for that cash to come in, rolling in every week. And that's definitely the case for my online courses as well. I spend probably 0 to 5 hours per week on my online courses, depending on the week. And that time is only spent on customer service. That's it. Or thinking about new strategic ways to grow the businesses, right? Other than that, it's all passive income. Now you compare that to another type of business model, for example, an agency, so running an ad agency. You actually have to spend all that time, right? working it. It might take you, 10, 20, 30, 40 hours a week. At the end of the day, it just turns into another job, right? And the whole point of having a passive online business is that eventually, you can use that time to invest in another business and keep scaling it up, or maybe even one day retire and rely on that online business, right? The whole point is it's not another job, it's a business. If it's a job, you'll be limited by the number of hours you work per week, and it's dependent on that, right? That's not an online business, that's a job. What we want is a scalable online passive income source, and an online course definitely provides you with that. So number three, this kind of feeds into the first point where we talked about profitability of it. But I think it's a really important point that we don't have any cost of goods sold, and we don't have to hold any inventory as part of an online course. Many other business models, you either need to pay for the cost of goods sold, which is let's say you are a pet store online and you're selling pet beds. You might be selling a luxury pet bed for $100, but it costs you $50 to make it, right? And then you've got all your other costs in between, like your shipping, a percentage of products that you send out that are actually returns. You're gonna have to have a higher percentage of kind of customer support, so maybe outsourcing that or taking your time, right? All of this means that you need to, you're gonna have a lower kind of overall profit margin. It's gonna take more time, right? There's more risk of returns. There's more risk of kind of products going off, etc., right? So that's the third point, another great reason why online courses is a great model. Number 4, no shipping. And this kind of ties into the point above as well, but more about the actual process rather than the cost of goods sold. So when you have to ship goods, and I'll use that same example as I did before, pet beds, you need to, if you're not doing a drop shipping business, which there's a lot of risks associated with that, for example, competition, because you're using the same goods as everyone else. But if you're actually doing an actual business where you need to buy your stock, rebrand it, etc., yes, you're not going to have that competition risk from others because you've got your own kind of branded good, but it does mean you don't need to warehouse it somewhere. It means you need to pay for shipping, which in COVID, with supply chain issues, it's incredibly difficult. The costs are going up. You're going to have delays, which means angry customers, which might affect your brand image. You're going to have returns. You're going to have to pay for storage. What happens if it gets wet and then your product gets destroyed? There's the upfront cost of having to pay for all that. It's just, there's so many bad things associated with that. With an online course, the only thing you're selling is a digital product, which there's no cost of goods sold and there's no shipping costs and there's no so it's delivered instantly to the customer, right? So we don't even need to worry about that whole shipping aspect of the business model. Okay, what else? Next is, and we saw this with COVID, but it was a longer term trend even before COVID, is that self-education's, the demand for it has gone up quite substantially and will continue to go up, over the next couple of decades, right? We saw this with COVID, with everyone was in lockdowns, having to work from home. So it's not just the demand for self-education, but it's also the methodology of education. People realize that they no longer have to go into universities or private colleges or schools to learn. All of a sudden we realize that A, we can go on Zoom calls and learn remotely. B, there's this whole world wide web of online resources that we can learn from. There's paid online courses. And all of a sudden demand for those kinds of e-learning products have shot up exponentially, right? So people realize that this is a viable means of learning and will continue to be the case over the next few decades. All right, next point here, we've got a large TAM. So what is TAM? TAM is total addressable market. It's the size of the market that we're actually trying to sell into, or in other words, it's the dollar value of revenue that we could obtain. So the point why online courses are great is similar to the point above, but in the sense that it is a very large market. So the e-learning market is expected to be worth $325 billion by 2025. So by getting in early, you're able to take advantage of that trend, heading towards greater spend in this area, both in terms of volume, but also price per point. So you can continue putting up prices, you can get new customers in. It's a great area to be in terms of revenue growth. So sales at the moment in terms of total TAM is around 60 billion. So you can expect that total market of the e-learning industry to basically quintuple. So basically times by 5 from where it is now. All right, so the next point here is a really important one. So it's about how an online course business can scale beyond your own personal time. And this is a critical point because if you think about how a job works is, you work 1 hour, you get paid per hour, or you might get an annual salary, but you're required to work a certain number of hours per week, whether that's 40 or 50 hours per week. So at the end of the day, you're getting paid for your time. But the other really important point is it means that you can't scale that beyond that time, right? At the end of the day, the amount of money that you can bring in terms of salary is restricted by the number of hours in a day and the number of hours in a week. The benefit of an online business is that you're not restricted by this time limit, right? It means that even whilst you're asleep, you can sell courses. And you're not restricted to sell one course per 1 hour like you are in a job or a contractor where you do a job and you get paid, right? You can sell 3 courses in an hour. You can sell 100 courses in a minute, right? And you can continue to scale that business infinitely up until it's an incredibly large and profitable and revenue-generating business. Whereas if it was a business like an ad agency or a side hustle, like where you're doing graphic design or web design for someone else, that's not scalable. At the end of the day, in those type of jobs, you're limited by the number of hours in the day. And we want to stay away from those kind of business models because we know that there's a limit to how much money we can make from those where there's not in an online course. All right, the final point on this page here is low IP theft risk. And what we mean by this is, you've invested all this time in a business or a product or a service, and what you don't want is for that to be taken away. And there's numerous examples of this happening, particularly in the product-based space. So for example, someone doing Amazon selling, so FBA selling, they create or find a product on eBay, or they find it in Alibaba, or even make their own product, right, which is a unique innovation, which is harder to copy. They start selling it on Amazon. All of a sudden, either Amazon or other people see that product is selling really, really well, and they want a cut of that pie. So what they do is they copy the product. Either they find the same supplier, and it's not that hard to do it these days, or if it's a product you've created themselves, it's not that hard to go to a Chinese factory and say, can you create this product? They then put that on Amazon, and all of a sudden, your product goes down in price. The other risk is potentially not even that someone's created another product, but someone completely cuts off your revenue stream. So for example, I've heard of a number of cases, for example, on the Facebook Marketplace or on Salesforce Marketplace, where someone has created an app or a service, which is maybe an add-on or a bolt-on in that app ecosystem. And all of a sudden, they've created this very profitable business making several $1 million a year. And all of a sudden, Facebook or Salesforce, whoever it may be, turns off the tap. They change the algorithm, or they block your app from the marketplace, or they create their own app. And all of a sudden, I've heard so many stories of people losing millions of dollars of revenue stream, suddenly disappearing overnight. And that can be incredibly difficult for people who have made plans around this, whether it's retirement or maybe reducing hours in their job, or even just spending all this time building this business. For it to disappear is a massive, massive impact. So we also, as we build out our business, we need to keep this in mind and think about trying to minimize the risk of IP theft or our product being removed from a marketplace. And that's why in later videos, as we go through thinking about where are we going to actually put our online course, we're going to try and stay on the side of proprietary, which means we're going to create our own website, our own platform, and that's going to mean that we're going to be protected from any businesses taking away our product, and we're going to be protected inherently by IP theft risk because of the nature of our service being an online course and not a physical product which someone can quickly copy. Now, the reason why an online course as a service is much more protected than a product from IP theft risk is even if you do have the same topic. For example, you're teaching a generic, online course about, Excel training or, coding, and there's lots of courses out there with that similar topic. The difference that your course has and the value proposition to differentiate yourself in the market is not the topic itself. It's how you teach it, and it's the value add, and it's the lessons that you provide. And everyone who teaches their own course can add their own little bit of value and teach it in their own little different way. So only if someone is able to copy you, your personality, your charisma, your ability to speak, and your own intimate knowledge of a topic, can they copy you, right? At the end of the day, you will be protected because of those factors, and another reason why an online course is the ultimate business model. Okay, on the next page, the next round of benefits of an online course model. So ease, right? Yes, it can be tricky to actually set up the business, record the videos, but that's why I've got me. I'm going to go through this course and teach you all of the steps how to do it. But this step here, this point here, is not about the actual business being easier. It's about creating an easier, profitable business, right? Because at the end of the day, you might require 10 product businesses to be built to create enough profit to create the profit of a single online course. So remember the example I said before about you've got a product business, whether it's drop shipping for 100K a year revenue, but you're only making 10% profit margin. That means you're making 10K per year. But let's say you make not a successful online course. Let's say it's a 40K a year revenue generating business, but you've got an 80% margin. That's already 3 to 4 times higher than the profit that you're going to make out of that product business, right? And that's why it's so much easier to create an online business that's profitable from an online course rather than a product-based business. So the next one is around strong moat and defensiveness on competition. And this kind of feeds into my earlier point. I may have already covered it with the IP theft risk point. But what the moat is saying is essentially it's a ring around your business that prevents other people from coming in and copying you, right? And with an online business, as I said before, your moat or your defensiveness or your barrier to entry into your product is your own way of teaching your course, even if it's in a kind of a market with other people selling this particular topic, or alternatively, maybe you're teaching a very niche subject or niche topic, in which case you've also got that protection there simply because it's a niche audience. Now think about a online business which sells products, specifically a drop shipping business. A drop shipping business is most likely someone who's gone on AliExpress, Alibaba. They found a certain cheap product, whether it's a massager or whether it's a kind of certain chair or certain makeup or whatever device, very cheap. They've then gone out and advertised it on TikTok, on Facebook ads, whatever it is. They're then selling that. Even if they were to find a niche where no one else is competing in and they're able to sell and make money, other people are then going to catch on. They're going to see the ads. There's lots of tools out there to look up a website, see what products they're selling, see its source, see what the cost is. People can work out how much money you're making. And all of a sudden, other people are going to come in and find and sell that product, and you've got more competition. And then it's just a race to the bottom on profit margins, and you do not want that. Next benefit of an online course is there's no risk of product deterioration, theft, etc. And again, this feeds back into our earlier point about not having to hold physical goods. Because we're selling a digital product, it's just created out of code, out of ones and zeros. There's no need to store it in a warehouse. There's no need for it to take up space in your apartment. And of course, all the earlier points about shipping, etc. But the specific benefit here that I wanted to talk about is in product-based businesses, there's always the risk of a few things. Number one, deterioration. So whether that's because the product has gone out of style and maybe there's a newer version and you're holding the old stock and you can't sell it. It could be because of damage. So for example, water damage, fire damage, termites, mold, all kinds of different reasons why your products could be damaged, and therefore you're unable to sell your business and you've lost all that money you've invested in buying stock. Theft is another major one as well. So it's very common in warehouse types environments and these kind of product-based businesses to factor in a percentage cost, just assuming that you're going to lose stock because of theft. It's a very common occurrence, and it's expected. So it's a cost to you, which you don't need to worry about with an online course. And finally, let's talk about the upfront costs. If you're going to buy stock, you got to invest money in R&D into developing a product. Right, so you got to send money over to China for them to develop some prototypes, send it back. There's the shipping on that. Once you're happy with that, you spend 10, 20, 30 grand on buying inventory and holding it somewhere, right? Then you got to pay for warehousing. You got to set up for all these different costs and shipping costs, etc. It costs a lot of money to start up one of those kind of physical product businesses. With a online course, the cost to you is in time, not money. And that's good, right? Because the worst thing that can happen is you lose your time. Most of us are young. We've got our whole lives ahead of us, but we don't have a lot of money. We want time to be our cost, not money. At the end of the day, does it really matter if you lose a couple of hours? We should be spending this time now while we're young, creating another business. So we've got a potential for a side hustle, for a side income that we can rely on and not be solely dependent on our job. So if anything went wrong, whether we got a disability or, family member passed away, or maybe even, in 10 years, 20 years time, if AI takes over, if your job's being made redundant, if you're a taxi driver or a truck driver, Elon Musk's AI is probably going to make your job redundant as well. So we've got to start thinking about these things and making these plans for the future to make these businesses. So what better way to do it is try as many as you can. It's a low cost to set up with an online course. You're not going to lose anything. Whereas if something goes wrong in a product-based business, you've lost all your money and you're in a terrible position. So many great reasons and benefits for starting an online course, and why I am such a strong proponent of it, and why I myself have so many online courses and make me really good money out of it as well. But that's to be fully transparent, every business model has downsides. I think online courses have less downsides than other business models. The four kind of downsides that I have identified, and they're not significant. Number one is the time investment in building that upfront content. So it does take a lot of time to plan, to film videos, to edit videos, upload, build the website. I mean, some of those things you will still have to do for other types of businesses. So for example, you still have to build a website for other businesses. And there's probably other elements of the business model in a product-based business that you don't necessarily, that you will need to do that you don't necessarily need to do for this. So it's, there are some time savings, but, making videos, I think especially, takes so long. So just be prepared. You do need to put in effort. There's no such thing as free money except for winning the lottery. This is going to take a lot of time. It is going to take a lot of effort, but it is worthwhile. If I hadn't spent that time on weekends, at night after work, building my other online courses that I've got, I wouldn't be making that passive income that I am currently. So it's totally worth it at the end of the day. You don't know for sure if it's going to be successful, which is the second risk here. But I would also argue that that's the same for other business models as well. The facts online is that, basically 1 in 3 businesses will fail in the first 3 years, and 90% will fail after the first 5 years. Hopefully I got that statistic right, but I guess the key takeaway is most businesses fail. So any business, you don't know if it's going to be successful. I guess the downside for this one is, you've spent so much time building the content. It's going to be frustrating if you think it's not going to be successful. But, when we're building a business, we have to take the mindset that it is going to be successful, that we need to put in the effort for it to be successful. Because if you go half-assed, you're not going to create a great product, you're not going to create a great business, and then people won't necessarily buy your course. Whereas if you had gone 100% in and committed to creating the best possible business that you can, you just got to take that risk for it to be successful. And if you keep doing it over and over, maybe you have one that doesn't take off. Eventually you will have a business that is successful, I guarantee it. And then it's just a matter of time. And, once you do have that successful passive income coming in, it's such a great feeling. And then you can go and repeat the process later on. Okay. The third downside of an online course model for a online business is it probably suits people who are a bit more extroverted or a bit more confident, given there is a significant element of building content, about speaking in front of a camera. Although you don't need to show your face, you can just record your screen. But it is a bit harder, I think, for people who are a bit more introverted, who maybe prefer something like coding or just working in the background, building a website quietly. But I guess it's just a hurdle that you need to get past, and maybe think of it as a growing opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to practice your public speaking skills, your confidence, your ability to, convey messages succinctly. So just think of it as a really positive learning opportunity if you are more of that introverted type of person. But yes, it definitely does suit the more extroverted type of person. And the final downside, I couldn't think of anything else, but the final downside is that yes, some topics can have competition if they are a bit more general in nature. So whether that's, teaching maths or teaching coding or teaching whatever it is, think of something very generic, right? If you go online, you'll probably find a number of courses in that general area, like yoga is probably another one. But my main counterpoint to that one is you can still be very successful even with a lot of competition. The reason is as we mentioned before, that total addressable market is quite large and growing year on year quite rapidly. Number two, you can differentiate yourself not just on the topic, but in how you teach it. What's your presentation style? What is your unique viewpoint? What are the kind of the different things that you can bring to your teaching that is different to other people's courses? You can stand out that way even in a crowded market. So those are really the only downsides that I could think of. Okay, so why not other business models? We've kind of covered, what are the pros and cons, but let's have a look at some other online business ideas and why we're not advocating going for those. So I've got a little website here that I found with a list of kind of ideas for businesses. And we'll go through one by one and we'll talk about, why I think they're not really a good idea. So number one we've got here is open a t-shirt online shop. Yes, it's pretty easy to do these days because, you can go on, Shopify or there's a number of businesses online which allows you to just create your own designs and sell it online. So why isn't it a good business? Well, number one, it's a very crowded market, right? It's very hard to differentiate itself, particularly when you're using the same underlying product and all you're doing is slapping your own brand name on it. Number two, very low margin, right? Because at the end of the day, you're still paying for your cost of goods sold. You're paying for the t-shirts. That's going to take up like 50, 60% of your profits by itself. And then you're going to pay for shipping, blah, blah, blah. You've also got to spend a lot on Google ads, right? Because how do you get people to notice you? Well, people aren't just going to reach out to you for your specific brand. They're not searching for a specific keyword like, blah, blah, training, finance training, which is going to come to your website. You need to advertise your brand and you need to go out and attract customers, and that's going to cost a lot. So you're probably not going to make any money from this. You're going to have to spend money probably, depending on if you're holding stock or doing kind of print on demand. You might not have to hold stock, but yeah, a lot of downsides with this model. Number two, drop shipping. So this is basically when you go on something like AliExpress, you look for certain products that you think are really attractive, whether it's kind of a, something cool like a ring light or a kind of a device which releases perfume in your room, or maybe it's a wireless charging device, something unique which you think people adds value. You go to a Chinese supplier, find it really cheap. You basically create your own website, add the product, put it at a really high price so that there's got a decent margin in there, and start advertising it to people. So why doesn't this business model work? And even though I think there are still a lot of people out there who are trying to tell people this is the way to make an online business that makes money, but at the end of the day, people who tell you that, they're probably trying to sell you their course which tells you how to make money off dropshipping. And then at the end of the day, they're making their money from an online course, which is the business model that we're advocating for, right? Not dropshipping. Dropshipping doesn't make any money. Or maybe 1 in 100 makes a lot of money, but the rest, it's just not worth the time. So, as we went through in all the previous points, you got to pay for, you're only going to make 10% margin because you've got to spend so much on COGS, you've got to spend so much on advertising. B, if you're a consumer and people are catching on to this, they see an ad for a product and think, oh yeah, I would actually like that product, and that's definitely happened to me. But instead of going through these websites, which you can now actually identify as dropshipping, you go straight to AliExpress and order it to your house for 10% of the price that you would have paid on this other website, right? Number 3, you're dealing with shipping. So especially with dropshipping, you're shipping it from China. That can take 3-4 weeks, especially with COVID. It could end up taking several months. You get a whole bunch of angry customers messaging you. All of your time's on customer support. They're asking for refunds, which, it's a bad state. You don't want to deal with it. Okay, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, advisor. Okay, so anything that's to do with being an advisor or doing a kind of a side gig, whether that's your kind of day-to-day job, maybe you're working as a graphic designer for your company and then doing some gigs on the side. Anything like this is an extension of your own time, right? So it means that you basically get paid per hour, or maybe for a consulting job, which is paid for completing a certain job, right? But at the end of the day, all of it is linked to your own personal exertion, which, if we go back to one of those fundamental principles, is we want to create a scalable business that is not dependent on our time, right? Because what happens when we're retired? We're going to keep working on this business, and is it going to fall over if we're not working? No, we need to create something that makes sales while we're asleep, that isn't dependent on our time. So there could be a decent business, and it does seem like a bit of a niche here, which could be interesting. So if you're willing to kind of work and find time, maybe this could be an interesting thing. But at the end of the day, it's going to be capped how much money you can make. So we don't advocate this kind of business model. This is the same for SEO expert. So again, this is like a consulting, this is a personal exertion type business, which is dependent on your own time and is ultimately not scalable and is capped in terms of how much money you can make. Selling online courses, this is of course what we're telling you about now and advocating that this is the best possible online business model that you can pursue. I myself have several online businesses. They make good money. They're very profitable. And I'm going to continue to make these businesses, and I'm going to teach you how to do the same in this course. Bug testing, again, this is personal exertion. Video producer, again, personal exertion, so you're capped. Same with this, personal exertion, personal exertion, personal exertion, personal exertion, personal exertion, personal exertion. So all of these are just basically jobs, right? We're not trying to get a job here. We're trying to create a business, which is scalable. Personal exertion, personal exertion, personal exertion. Okay, here's an interesting one, affiliate marketing. So this is basically where you can promote a product that someone else is selling. And if you can get new customers to go to their website through your referral, you can take a cut out of basically the final sales. So it could be something like, a physical product, or it could be a software, could be even like a cruise ship, it could be anything really. At the end of the day, that's fundamentally what it is someone needs more sales. It reaches out to basically anyone with influence who can then make money by referring people to it. So I think in certain scenarios, this can be a good business model, but only when you don't have, so you've already got a good following, or you've got a lot of influence in a certain area. So let's say you are you're the go-to expert in holiday destinations and where to go, right? People trust you. You've got a blog. You have millions of readers. If you say, go to this country because it's got great food, great wine, people listen to you. You can make a lot of money out of this, because all of a sudden you'll have people reaching out to you. Cruise ships. You'll have holiday destination hotels saying, "Can you refer my place? I'll set up a kind of discount code for you. If they use that, I'll give you a percentage of sales out of that." So because you can already influence a significant amount of people, if you can convert that to sales, take a percentage of cut, that's a lot of money. And you didn't have to pay anything for advertising, because it's all coming through your organic kind of influence. And this is the same for, if you're a social media influencer, it's basically the same thing at the end of the day, right? You've got influence, you're able to make people to make purchasing decisions and take a cut of it. But this is only for a very specific niche of people who have that influence. I think people who kind of push affiliate marketing as an everyday option for people, what that actually looks like when you don't have that influence is it means that you go on websites that have a list of all the different affiliate marketing codes. You look through it for kind of offers that you think that you could potentially sell to, that you think is attractive. And then what you do is you basically create an ad for the company. So whether it's Google AdWords, whether it's a TikTok ad, whether it's a YouTube ad, whether it's a YouTube video, you film it, and then you add the link in there and say, go buy from this link. People go and buy it, you make money. But the problem with this model is, if you're not an influencer, is you have to pay for those ads. And often paying for those ads, if you're not an expert marketer, can cost more than you make from the commissions. You don't actually make any money. So I think it's an interesting one, but I'm quite 50-50 about it. I'm going to say it's not a good business model, because we need to think about who the majority of people using this model are, and it's the everyday people who aren't influencers, who don't, command a large audience, and they're the people who aren't going to make any money out of this business model because they're going to go and pay for ads. So we're not saying this is a good model, but it could be interesting depending on your situation. Influencer, yeah, it could be a good one, but again, very difficult to do. And if you're not in that kind of top percentage, you're not going to make any money. Handmade goods shop, so many problems with this. Number one, it is based on personal exertion because you have to actually make the goods. Number two, you're holding physical goods and you've got to pay for the ingredients to make them. Number three, you've got to deal with shipping costs and delays and probably low margin as well. So I'll just quickly scroll down, see if there's anything else interesting. But most of it is almost exactly the same. It's either going to fall into that kind of exertion category, or it has kind of physical products. So the only one in this list that you can see that actually makes any money is selling courses. So let's go back to our presentation. So I've just kind of summarized kind of the key business models and kind of all of the key points we talked about, and why online courses is the best model and really the only model, I think, in my view, that we can really pursue a scalable, sustainable, profitable online business. Number one, okay, let's look at the categories of different business models, and this doesn't cover everything, but it kind of covers most things. So we've got online courses, which of course is self-explanatory. Dropshipping, we covered what that means. It's basically going on Alibaba, finding a cheap product, building your own website, marketing a product at a high margin, trying to sell it to people who haven't figured that out. Side contractor, that's basically your own personal exertion, whether it's web developer or graphic designer, just doing jobs on the side. Affiliate marketing, we covered that one. That's basically, we're assuming in this diagram here that we're viewing it from the perspective of someone who is an everyday person who's not an influencer, who doesn't have a lot of influence over people and has to pay for ads. Print on demand, that's basically a t-shirt business or other kind of clothing where instead of holding the actual physical shirts or making the shirts and clothing, you actually just upload a design, send it to someone like Shopify, and they will then print it and ship it out. You don't need to deal with this stuff. Branded stock, so again, this is any kind of business that holds products, but it's not one that's drop shipping or on demand. It's one that you actually hold the stock on hand or in a warehouse, but it's probably branded stock in your own kind of brand rather than kind of generic AliExpress stuff. And then finally you got something like an agency, whether it's marketing agency or SEO agency. Okay, so let's talk about kind of each of the key criteria. So low COGS. So basically, we want to stay away from product-based businesses because COGS is such a significant percentage of your revenue. And yes, people boast about their revenue from their online business, but if 60-70% of that's going to actually purchasing the product, then what's the point, right? And we'd also probably include advertising costs in COGS because, to make a sale, you need to buy a customer. You have to have a customer acquisition cost and you need to pay for the good you're shipping, right? So in a drop shipping business, that's probably 90% of your revenue is in marketing and shipping and the product cost. So the only ones that we really have here which are low COGS is online courses and the one which is your personal exertion, because there's no real good that you need to purchase and sell in a where you're doing web development for people, right? It's just your own time. Next is passive income. So basically this is going back to that point around your own personal exertion. Are you capped by the number? Is your revenue capped by the number of hours in the week and the number of hours that you can work? For online courses, it's not. You can make 50,000 sales in one night whilst you're asleep if you want, theoretically, on an online course. But you couldn't do that with a side contractor because you could work 40 hours in a week and bill for those 40 hours, but you couldn't work 50,000 hours, for example. It's just not possible. I've kind of put these squiggly marks, which is kind of like not quite yes, not quite no for dropshipping, affiliate marketing, print on demand, branded stock. Dropshipping, it is a little bit, it really depends on your shipping, but it's not because you still got to deal with a lot of kind of customer returns, a lot of customer issues. You got to deal with suppliers and, there's always issues. So it's a little bit scalable, but not super scalable. Not something you can go away and just forget about it, right? you do need to be on hand and on emails and dealing with issues. Next is affiliate marketing. I say, so yes, it is to an extent, because you create an ad campaign, you set and forget. But the issue is ad campaigns aren't always, especially for kind of the impulsive ad campaigns like Facebook or TikTok, you need to stay up to date with trends, new products, things change. It's very often not set and forget. But maybe you have found a niche where you found one ad which is very successful and you can just keep it running. And then in that case, then it probably is scalable. Print on demand, similar issues to dropshipping, and similar to branded stock as well. Agency is definitely not passive income, because agency is basically when you set up a business and you can even hire other people or outsource the labor, but you go around and you basically quote for jobs, and then you get your team to do the work, or get an outsourced team on Fiverr or Upwork, which are basically these outsourcing businesses, to go and do the work for you. But it's not passive, because you basically go and need to quote for all these jobs. You need to fulfill the jobs, you need to manage the team, so it's very much not a scalable business. You can grow it, because at the end of the day, it's not limited by your own time, it's limited by your team, but you can hire more team to kind of increase your capacity, but it does take a lot of work and effort. Next, scales by itself, not with your time. So we kind of covered this as well. It's a little bit of duplication with the point above. Highly profitable. So really the only one here that's highly profitable is probably online courses, and maybe to an extent side contractor / web development. But the reason I haven't given this one a full green tick is because at the end of the day, you're kind of limited by how much revenue you can bring in. But as a margin, so profit margin, side contractor is quite profitable, because you don't typically have any other costs except for your time cost. Everything else is typically very low margin, like 10 to 20% at most. Most dropshipping will be around that 10% mark, even single digits in terms of profit margin. Next is shipping returns not required. So it's not required for online courses because it's a digital product. Dropshipping, of course, you do require shipping, and you got to deal with returns. Side contractor, you don't need to deal with it. Affiliate marketing, you don't need to deal with it, which is good. Print on demand, branded stock, you do. Agency, you don't, although you do need to deal with client issues, like if they're not happy, you got to deal with them, etc. Competition risk. So this is basically, how much competition is out there. Is there kind of any IP risk, etc. So the IP risk for online courses is very low, but in some areas of topics, there can be more courses than others. So that's why it's not a full green tick. But I think you could argue it's a full green tick given the points I made earlier about how everyone can differentiate themselves in their online course simply by, by the way they teach it, the different insights and the unique insights they can bring to the table, or by just having an online course in a very niche market, right? So potentially you could argue that's a green tick for online courses as well. Competition risk is very low for dropshipping because you're basically dealing with commodities which anyone can buy. There's no differential. Everyone's going to, if people see you're making money off your website, they're going to go and copy you. They're going to copy that same product from AliExpress, which they're selling to thousands of other people, and they're going to just basically steal your business. Side contractor, I've put it as a maybe as well because yes, you're not competing with people, but you do have to compete for jobs and other workers at the end of the day. Affiliate marketing, there's probably a little bit of competition risk in terms of, other people. If a company, especially if you're working off a link that's available on one of these databases of affiliate links, is that other people will also be looking through it, also be trying to create ads. So you're going to deal with that competition there. And you're probably also competing with, the company itself, right? They're going to have their own ads out there. And I guess you're competing against the cost of Google ads versus the fee you're getting from the affiliate marketing. So it's probably not going to make that much out of it. Print on demand, you're dealing with a lot of competition. There's so many kind of t-shirt businesses out there, like thousands and thousands and thousands. You got to have some real differential to make people want to buy from you. Why should they buy from you from some other kind of similar floral print t-shirt company? There's millions of them. Branded stock, similar issue. An agency, there's a low barrier to entry to create an agency. So there is a lot of competition for those. And finally, easy to do. So you could actually see this as a negative, right? Because the easier it is to do this business, you could argue the more competition there is likely to be. And once you've created it, you want a strong barrier to entry. So you don't want it to be too easy, right? Online courses, I'm going to put this as a maybe, could even be a red X, just because it is difficult to understand how to create a proprietary course, which we're going to teach you. So you've got me, which is why it's a yellow one, not a red one. I'm going to teach you step by step how to do this and run you through in later videos. I'm going to build the exact course that you're watching right now, step by step, so you can see every single step in the process, rather than me just teaching you conceptually how to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it. And it's also quite difficult to actually, film every single video, plan out your content, speak to it, make sure that there's no gaps, that it looks professional, etc. Again, something I'm going to teach you, but it's not that easy to do. Dropshipping is quite easy to do, or you just basically create a Shopify account. They've now got add-ons in Shopify, which basically called OBERLO, which basically link you straight into AliExpress. It uploads the products you want to do. It tells you the price margins. Yes, super easy to do. The problem with that is the easier it is, everyone does it, right? And there's no profit to be made. Similar with affiliate marketing, right? You just basically look for a link, create an ad, and you make money, but it's just not very profitable. Print on demand, again, very easy. There's lots of websites out there. I think Shopify does their own version of this. You basically just upload your design and people they do all the shipping, they do all the handling. So very easy to do. But again, it encourages competition, which erodes profits. Okay. And then agency could potentially be a red X on this one as well. But if we just look at a high level at kind of where we landed in terms of the business models, as you can see, online courses head and shoulders above the competition in terms of business models. I wouldn't advocate any of these other business models if you're thinking about a business. So hopefully you are now on the same page. You agree that this is the only right way to do a successful, scalable online business is to create an online course. So now we can dedicate the remaining videos on, I guess the rest of the conceptual steps in bringing it all together before we fully commit to building your own website. And then we're going to go through it step by step in designing your course. And then I'm going to show you how to build this course step by step so you can see that in action. And the final step will be go out and build your own course and hopefully make a successful, profitable business. So hopefully you found this useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.